All right, go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the April 23rd, 2026 meeting of the Seattle Planning Commission. I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that our meeting today is taking place on the occupied Coast Salish land. We pay respect to the Coast Salish elders, past and present, and extend that respect to their descendants and to all Indigenous people. To acknowledge this land is to recognize the history of physical and cultural genocide and settler colonialism, which continues to displace Indigenous peoples today. It is also to recognize that these lands, waters, and their significance for the resilient and wise people who continue to thrive in this region, despite the consequences of displacement and broken treaties. Those who hold settler privilege in the city must work towards supporting the Coast Salish people and all Indigenous people using the various forms of wealth and privilege that we reap due to it. My name is Matt Hutchins, and I use he, him pronouns, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the Seattle Planning Commission, along with Zio Alvarez. Let's see. I want to start with our follow up with some announcements. We're happy to make all commission meetings open to the public. Please note that the Planning Commission does not hold public hearings per se, since the commission is an advisory body. We provide recommendations to elected leaders who then in turn have the responsibility with the actual decisions. We encourage individuals and organizations to make their comments appropriately to elected officials. This meeting is a hybrid meeting with some individuals participating remotely while others are participating in person at the Boards and Commissions room at Seattle City Hall. Now let's see, for our color brave space norms, I'd like to invite a commissioner to choose and briefly speak to one of our color brave space norms that they feel has particular relevance to today's agenda. Anyone want to volunteer?
I can volunteer. This is Dylan.
Hey, thanks, Dylan.
I was just going to say, I think look at practice examining racially biased systems and broadly just in terms of kind of what we're looking at with these, something to keep in mind as we look at these manufacturing industrial zones and what that means for perhaps neighbors in the past and in the future that are in these areas, and just keeping in mind the kind of I guess potential air quality and other just challenges that come around with being in these areas as we understand what it means to continue to have industrial spaces and job-based spaces in our city, and what the impacts are on neighbors that have traditionally been disadvantaged and unable to perhaps kind of choose where else they're able to live in the city. So I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Dylan. All right. Are there any amendments or suggested modifications that we would like to make to the color brave space norms? Okay, I don't hear any. So then I suggest that we all agree to these norms and operate our meeting according to those. Let's see. Round of introductions. As I said, I'm Matt Hutchins. I live in West Seattle. My day job is an architect, and I think let's just go around the space. I think, let's see, Zio is not here, or is she here?
She is not here today.
Okay. Let's see, maybe Michaela, you want to lead us off?
Happy to. Michaela Daffern, she, her pronouns. I live in Capitol Hill, and in my day job, I work in affordable housing policy and planning. And I will pass it to Andy.
Hi, Andy Dannenberg, live in Northeast Seattle, he, him, and I teach in public health and urban planning at University of Washington. I'll pass it to Dylan Glisecki.
Hi, Dylan Glisecki. I live in the Central District. He, him pronouns. I work in architecture and urban design on urban infrastructure projects and multifamily housing. And we'll pass it on to Rebecca.
Hi there, Rebecca Brune, she, her pronouns. I work in transit-oriented development at Sound Transit, and I am for now still a resident of Crown Hill, though our lease didn't get renewed, so soon to be a new neighborhood.
Oh, rough.
And I will pass it to Caleb.
Caleb Tewolde, he, him pronouns. I live in Beacon Hill and I'm an educator at Rainier Scholars. And I'll pass it to Radhika.
Hi everyone, I'm Radhika Nair. I use she, her pronouns. I live in Wedgwood in North Seattle, and in my day job, I'm a community planner. I don't know who hasn't gone yet, so I'll pass it to Vanessa.
How about Rose?
Morning, I'm Rose Lucella, Whitson, pronouns they, them. I'm up north in Licton Springs, Northgate area, and I work as a wetland biologist and pruning specialist at Jacobs for my day job. I'll pass to Deanna.
Good morning, Deanna Quintana, she, her pronouns. I live in Capitol Hill, and for my day job, I'm a multimodal transportation planner. Is that all for commissioners?
Yeah, that's it for commissioners. How about Robin? We'll switch to staff.
Hi, Rhonda McGonigal. I use she, they pronouns. I am staff for the commission and I live on Vashon Island. Olivia.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Olivia Baker, I use she, her pronouns, and I'm staff to the planning commission. John?
Good morning, I'm John Hoy. I use he, him pronouns, and I am staff to the planning commission.
And I'll wrap us up. Good morning, everyone. My name is Vanessa Murdoch. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the executive director of the All Volunteer Planning Commission. And I'll punt it back to Matt.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Okay. All right. So we have 2 items on the agenda today. First, we're going to discuss and finalize our comments to the draft Maritime Industrial Regional Center plans. And then we'll be briefed by staff from SDOT on the Seattle Transportation Plan Performance Report. Let's see. And so we do have quorum to be able to approve the minutes, correct?
We do.
Okay. All right. So let's see. We're going to, are there any changes or modifications to the minutes for the April 9th meeting? Okay. I'm going to ask for a motion to approve.
Rose
So-
moved.
I got- Okay, perfect. All right. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, they are approved. Okay, upcoming commission meetings. Our next Housing and Neighborhoods Committee meeting is scheduled for Thursday, May 7th, 7:30 to 9 a.m. online via the Teams platform. And our next full commission meeting is Thursday, May 14th from 3 to 5:30 p.m. Vanessa, you have some announcements?
I do. Thank you. Just a reminder to everybody on the call, as well as members of the public listening in. This is a hybrid meeting. Actually, all commissioners on the call today are on the call. Staff is here. Olivia, John, and I are here in the Boards and Commissions room of Seattle City Hall. I'd like to remind commissioners to use the chat function of MS Teams to join the discussion queue, but not to put anything substantive in the chat. Members of the public that are accessing this meeting via Teams can see the chat, but anybody calling in cannot. So we want to make sure our meetings are accessible to everybody. Speaking of public comment, we have a variety of different ways and to offer public comment, which we appreciate. People can join us here at the Boards and Commissions room or email me prior to the meeting and I can read the public comment, or for members of the public who are here joining us, if you raise your hand in the Teams platform, we can recognize you to speak. And I'm just checking, I don't see anybody calling in. So there are 3 members of the public joining us. If you care to offer public comment, please raise your hand. And I'll give you a second to do that. And I'm not seeing anybody raise their hand. So Matt, we can skip the blurb about public comment and move straight to the 7:45 agenda item.
Okay. All right. Let's see. So we're going to finalize our draft MIC plan comments under consideration right now. So John, take it away.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. This morning, we will be discussing and finalizing the Planning Commission's comments on the draft manufacturing and industrial center plans. I just want to give you an overview of our timeline for this review. Back in February, OPCD staff presented a briefing on the draft manufacturing and industrial center plans. That was before they were released, to give us a preview of that work. On the draft plans, there are 2 plans, the Greater Duwamish MIC. I'll just continue to use the word MIC. It's MIC, Manufacturing and Industrial Center. The Greater Duwamish MIC plan and the Ballard Inner Bay North End MIC, or commonly called the BIN MIC. Those 2 draft plans were released on April 6th. The Planning Commission's Land Use and Transportation Committee had its first discussion on these draft plans last Thursday at the Land Use and Transportation Committee. And then today, we will be having additional discussion and finalizing the Planning Commission's comments on those plans. We will be sending those comments to OPCD before their review period closes on May 5th. And then it is anticipated that the City Council will be reviewing these MIC plans and approving them in the summer or fall of 2026. Next slide, please. So for those commissioners that attended the Land Use and Transportation Committee last week, you saw some of these slides. I did want to review them for the benefit of the other commissioners that were not able to attend that meeting and for the public. Just as background, the City Council adopted legislation in 2023 that represented major implementation actions for the city's industrial and maritime strategy. These included a series of new comprehensive plan policies, adjustments to the boundaries of the 2 MICs, and significant updates to industrial zoning regulations with the creation of 3 new zones. Maritime manufacturing and logistics zone is the heaviest manufacturing and industrial zone. Industry and innovation zone, or II, is often referred to as kind of the transit-oriented development industrial zone. And then urban industrial is the lowest density industrial zone for neighborhood-based maker spaces and low density manufacturing spaces. Next slide, please. For context, the Planning Commission's review of the industrial maritime strategy. We conducted a thorough review and provided comment on the industrial maritime strategy over the few years that that project was being developed. In February of 2022, the Planning Commission submitted a detailed comment letter on the industrial maritime strategy draft environmental impact statement. And then in April of 2023, the Planning Commission submitted a detailed comment letter on the industrial maritime strategy comprehensive plan amendment. Those annual amendments were adopted to basically accept and incorporate the new zones that and the future land use map amendments that I talked about. Next slide. Okay, so as I mentioned, there are two draft MIC sub-area plans, the Greater Duwamish MIC plan and the Bin MIC plan. These sub-area plans are key to redesignation of the centers by the Puget Sound Regional Council and ensure that both centers remain competitive for federal transportation funding. And these plans represent another implementation action of the industrial and maritime strategy. Once adopted, these plans will become part of the city's comprehensive plan. Just for additional content, both of these plans rely heavily on existing comprehensive plan policies, drawing from policies in several elements of the One Seattle plan, including the growth strategy, land use, transportation, shoreline, climate, and economic development elements. Staff from OPCD made it clear that the intent was to not repeat information in these plans that was already in other existing plans and policies. It was also made clear that the transportation section of these plans is consistent with the adopted Seattle Transportation Plan, including any mitigation measures, including in that transportation plan, and also that these MIC plans will meet the requirements by the Puget Sound Regional Council for recertification of the MICs. We spoke about these major policy moves at last week's committee meeting. Just in summary, there are three major policy moves that are new to these MIC plans. One, the Greater Duwamish plan makes it very clear that there will be no new residential uses allowed in the stadium district, which is part of the Duwamish MIC. Secondly, both plans allow for one-time boundary adjustments, if necessary, related to future Sound Transit stations by meeting specific criteria at those locations. And then thirdly, there are new policies in the Duwamish MIC plan related to the Reconnect South Park project. I'm going to summarize a little bit of the discussion and the comments that we heard at last week's committee meeting, and I can provide a little additional clarification and any responses to any questions from Office of Planning and Community Development staff that received in response to those questions. So specific to the one-time boundary adjustments for related to Sound Transit stations, there was a question to clarify what is meant by the criteria that states boundary adjustments can be accommodated and result in no new net loss of viable industrial land. We sent this question to OPCD staff, and the response was to clarify that the viable industrial land would be defined as that any property to be transferred into the MIC would need to be of a size that is usable and contiguous to either the Duwamish MIC or the Bid MIC. The next comment was on the new policy language related to the Reconnect South Park project in the Duwamish MIC. The comment from commissioners was that the definition of the Reconnect South Park project within the MIC plan does not reflect the neighborhood intent of the project. Clarifying this with OPCD staff, it was made clear that the references to the Reconnect South Park project in this MIC plan are only related to land in the MIC that would be potentially affected by the Reconnect South Park project. And there are, I just wanted to highlight the language that is in the MIC plan that is related to this. In the land use section of the MIC plan, it reads, the Reconnect South Park is an early stage evaluation of long-term options for the State Route 99 corridor between South Holden Street and Tukwila International Boulevard. Alternatives range from full decommissioning of SR 99 to targeted measures such as new overhead crossings. Potential corridor changes could add new usable industrial land through adjustments to former right-of-way and ramp areas. And then there is one new policy related to land use that, again, as related to any changes or impacts to the actual MIC by the Reconnect South Park project. If changes to transportation infrastructure as part of Reconnect South Park occur, explore potential for making land available for potential new investment and development, encourage a revitalized use of land with a mix of industrial and non-industrial uses consistent with the intent of the urban industrial zone. Next slide. There was a comment about the what was stated about the MIC plans are consistent with the Seattle Transportation Plan. There was a comment that access to transit is critical, and commissioners would like to see design improvements to freight routes to incorporate Vision Zero with specific focus on speed and crossings within the manufacturing and industrial centers. And then I believe there's one more comment that was brought up at the committee meeting. The question is, was there any reference to the potential for disruption to industrial jobs by artificial intelligence? And how do we anticipate automation affecting industrial uses in Seattle specifically? And we forwarded that question on to OPCD staff, and the response was that AI and automation was not discussed during the industrial maritime strategy stakeholder process, but that AI and automation are interesting topics and worthy of their own. Next slide, just a little bit about the intent of today's discussion. This is the final opportunity to provide comments on these draft MIC plans. So we will finalize comments after today's meeting, and we will submit informal comments, submit to OPCD as opposed to a formal comment letter. And this is similar to how we handled the comments on the downtown and Northgate Regional Center plans. And those comments will be submitted to OPCD before the May 5th deadline. That's all I have this morning. So we will open it up for additional discussion and comments.
All right. Put your name in the queue in the chat if you've got additional comments. Okay, Andy, all
Yeah,
yours.
hi. That response to the no net loss, can you go back to that response? Yeah, I'm fine with what they said. What it means is that something that's not industrial can become industrial, which sounds fine. I had always heard that's an incredible, difficult thing to do, but maybe they have some land where is doable. Just I'd always heard that anything trying to turn something into industrial that hadn't previously been industrial tends to get pushback, but maybe they have some appropriate land where that's not an issue.
I would just say this would be within a station area, a Sound Transit station area, and the Sound Transit has already, I mentioned this at last week's meeting, Sound Transit has already identified that they may need a boundary adjustment specifically for the Ballard station, the future Ballard station at 15th and Market. And they are talking to the city, and there would potentially be a land swap if they can work that out to and these would be fairly limited, and that would be in the Ballard, the bin mic, and that would be city and Sound Transit would find land that meets this criteria to be
Okay.
for land.
Yeah, it sounds fine if they can do it, so no problem.
Okay, Rose.
Hi, on that topic, I do think that the Duwamish and Ballard policies on this subject should be revised to match because they're currently not the same. And I do think that the one-time adjustment right now in the Duwamish, it's if at least one of the following conditions, and this one-time adjustment with no net loss is just one of the possible 3 conditions. I would actually recommend that they make it mandatory. So, can only occur if at least one of the following conditions is met, and they include maybe the 2 other bullets, and then say, provided that boundary adjustments can be accommodated and result in no net loss. And then that also ensures that there's not an erosion of overall industrial lands.
When speaking to OPCD staff to clarify these, there are 3 criteria. One-time boundary adjustment does not necessarily need to meet all three criteria. The 3 criteria were each designed specifically for individual station areas. So the reason the BINMIC only has 1 policy is they are only looking at 1 potential area that would theoretically need a boundary adjustment. The other 2 are for areas within the Duwamish MIC. So each of those criteria are designed for already identified specific issues related to potential future station areas.
Okay, so what we can infer by that is that they do intend to give up industrial land for those 2 light rail stations?
We don't know that for sure.
Right. And I guess that's kind of where my hesitation is, because we've been told all this time in every commission briefing I've attended where this has come up that industrial land is precious and once lost cannot be refound or regained, right? And so I guess I'm questioning a little bit of cognitive dissonance. It feels like a lot of shadow work, if you will. The intent is not super clear. But maybe I'm the only one who feels this way, so I'd appreciate if other commissioners weigh in.
Dylan.
Yeah, just trying to kind of think out loud with Rose. If they do have, we have light rail running through industrial areas. The light rail, the plan is not finalized, and so individual station areas, they don't. It's unclear exactly how the layouts are going to work and what additional uh, surprises may come as they finalize design. And so it seems like they have to have some ability to provide some sort of boundary adjustment if an unforeseen condition occurs. Um, Otherwise, they're going to be locked into a potential, early on 30% design or less that just doesn't work for an updated transit plan. So I feel like they need some sort of flexibility built in so that we don't run into issues building out our light rail stations down the road in these industrial lands. I share the same concern regarding loss of industrial lands and don't want to see that, but there is going to be some loss of industrial lands when we have a light rail running through an area. So it seems like they're trying to do the best they can to accommodate a future transit system that's going to inevitably take over some of the industrial land. So I feel like I'm okay because with the intent.
Okay. Rebecca.
Yeah, I'm going to speak a little carefully here to not overlap with my day job, but I also know that it's there's accounting that needs to be done for acquisitions for the guideway and stations, not just like in station areas, but acquisitions that need to be done to support the construction of the rail that end up in, within the boundaries of the MIC, and what happens to that land afterwards is also a consideration where, utilizing the tools that we have available as a region to redevelop acquired land becomes difficult with land that is so tightly zoned for industrial in particular. And so I think I agree that having the flexibility to be able to adapt to various acquisitions and various parts of the alignment and station areas is going to be an important tool, considering nothing's really locked down yet.
Rose, do you have any response to those perspectives?
No, I mostly just wanted to bring it up because this is a departure from past commission comments, but that's okay. I know that we're also, as a commission, generally in favor of figuring out how to get the stations completed and built. So
Right. Yeah, there's tension. We're trying to put we have two competing priorities in these areas. It doesn't and something's got to give. So, all right. Let's see. Are there other comments about this? Our other comments about our comments? Okay. I'm not hearing any further discussion. John, do you have what you need to be able to write the informal comments?
We do.
Okay,
What
great.
we will do is combine the comments from last week's committee meeting with the discussion today. As I mentioned, the comments are informal and will be sent to OPCD staff and copy, Vanessa, just to confirm, copy City Council.
Yes.
on these comments before the deadline, which is May 5th. And OPCD staff will consider our comments. They said they are not required to respond to our comments, but they appreciate us reviewing the plans and writing comments.
As long as we're appreciated. Okay. All right. Well, let's see. In light of that, then I suggest that we could move earlier on to our next agenda item. Let's see. Do we have? Is Jonathan here on the meeting?
He is not scheduled for another 15 minutes.
Okay.
So options are to take a break, or and I see somebody already in the chat. So I'll leave it up to you, Matt, what you want to do after calling on Dylan.
Okay. I'd like to call on Dylan and have him talk for 15 minutes.
Thanks, guys. Okay, let's see. Well, actually, I was just thinking, sorry, I know we kind of closed our comment period, but I have one more thought on active transportation and just kind of my experience going through both Ballard MIC and Duwamish MIC on a bike and on foot. I don't work in either of these areas. And so I say I share my comments kind of in the context of understanding that there is a very important freight network that exists and serves these areas, and acknowledge that. But at the same time, just speaking from my experience, there's also some very important, active transportation networks that flow through these and around the edges of these areas. And I know they do address this, but just wanted to kind of put an emphasis on the importance of course, maintaining the freight network, but at the same time, we're not an either or scenario, and emphasizing the importance of providing a connected, bike network, non-motorized transit network through and around these areas, because there are huge gaps in particularly in Duwamish area, and just want to continue to emphasize the need to fill out the citywide bike network, through citywide non-mobility or non-motorized network, and that these major industrial areas are a part of that. That's it. It's not quite 15 minutes, but
that was fine. Let's see. Is there anyone else who would like to revisit comments or has anything further? Okay, well, I think in light of that, it's rare that we're ahead of schedule, but maybe we take a 5-minute break or a 7-minute break just to make space for Jonathan to get here. Is that okay with everybody? Okay. Go get a cup of coffee. And we'll let's see, we'll reconvene at 8:20.
Perfect. And I do believe that Jonathan is meant to be here at 8:25, but we can reach out to him right now and see if there's any chance he can get here 5 minutes earlier, virtually.
Okay.
Here.
Okay. Yeah. I think there's going to be, I want to have space for that. I think there's going to be some more questions about that. His topic. Okay. Thank you.
I'm going to suggest stop recording. Or what do you think?
Let's just leave it going and
we'll
We'll just mute everything.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. See everybody at 8:20 or thereabouts. Vanessa, were you able to get through to Jonathan?
John reached out. But
I reached out to him on Teams. He did not respond, but he might just show up.
Okay. You know, this might be a good point of for us to just discuss what's going to happen at the March 14th meeting, Vanessa, with regards to scoping for the FE or the SEIS.
yes. I'll take a run at it and then rely on you and Michaela to correct me if I'm wrong. So,
I guess
So
first of all, welcome back, everyone.
yeah, thank you. Welcome back, everyone. We can take the 10-minute breakdown. So at the March 14th meeting, we are going to have staff from OPCD come and listen and discuss with us the scoping of the supplemental EIS that is being undertaken for the upcoming condensed phases to implement the comp plan. So that supplemental EIS will cover environmental analysis on neighborhood centers and expanded neighborhood centers that were proposed by City Council last year in a resolution that they could not adopt into the comp plan because the final EIS for the comp plan that was adopted at the end of last year did not study new neighborhood centers, expanded neighborhood centers. The approach that we have heard from OPCD is that this supplemental EIS will be more expansive in its analysis so as to provide greater flexibility down the road, both for the executive as well as for City Council, as they are looking at implementation of the adopted comp plan. And so implementation means zoning, other items that will be considered or that we're imagining will be considered our analysis of residential, how our transit corridors might support residential uses beyond just the block face of the transit corridor. So our understanding is that this is not a public scoping in that it's not going to be like a whole new EIS. This is a supplemental EIS to the EIS that was originally scoped for the adopted comp plan. And OPCD is interested to hear from the Planning Commission what ideas the commission has on what should be included in that scope. So we are likely going to be starting the meeting on the 14th a little later, because on the 14th is the next select committee on the comprehensive plans meeting, when they will be discussing the corridors and centers legislation. So we want to be able to listen into that discussion, and you all can listen into the discussion from the comfort of wherever you want to listen to the discussion on. But we will be joined by OPCD staff. We're thinking around 4 o'clock in the afternoon on the 14th. We're going to use our Housing and Neighborhoods Committee meeting, which is May 7th, to have a working session on ideas that the commission has raised in the past that perhaps were not addressed in the adoption of the comp plan due to there not being environmental review on those items. And also just to have one more meeting opportunity before we engage with OPCD staff on the 14th of May. And anybody who would care to chime in to, or if there are questions, this is in response to the mayor's direction to city staff to condense the phased approach of implementing the comp plan into an accelerated schedule and into one phase as opposed to having separate phases. So it's the 14th is our opportunity to engage with OPCD staff and help inform their thinking around the scope of the supplemental EIS.
So
Great.
if I could just, the one thing I would share that I heard yesterday, that for those of you who've had trouble tracking the bouncing ball of process, like the process stuff, and the meetings and like, wait, what's this meeting about? Do I need to be there? The schedule that is on the select committee for the comprehensive plan has been updated and does reflect this accelerated schedule. And so the meeting schedule that's happening is it is like maybe your best resource right now for figuring out the sequencing in the near term. I thought that was interesting.
Thank you, Michaela. I will include that. I will be sending out to the commission materials tomorrow that include a synopsis or an attempt at a synopsis of the commission's past comments over the last 3 years on the comprehensive plan. So as well as links to all of our various comments so that you all can approach the Housing and Neighborhoods meeting on May 7th and the full commission meeting on May 14th, having that sort of top of mind of what the commission has said it's already on record for. And that will hopefully help organize your thoughts and discussion.
Could you
Great.
help us make sure that we don't repeat telling them things that they should do that they already did
Yes.
right with the plan?
Yes.
I think it'd be like the
Okay.
lingering, I know that's harder analysis to do, of pulling forward some of the things that have been consistent themes throughout our comments that remain under implemented.
Yeah, if we send you the entire
Okay.
spreadsheet, but you can filter it by whether or not it was
Okay.
implemented.
Okay, now I'm gonna jump in. Now we're behind schedule. So Dylan, we're gonna table your request to comment or ask a question about the scoping comments. We can handle that offline. All right. Do we have Jonathan?
He messaged me that his computer did a restart. He said he'd be a couple minutes.
Okay, wait. So Dylan, now's the perfect time to make your comment.
Yeah, so I know that a couple of you guys were in a meeting, I believe, yesterday, and in light of that, in light of what we heard on Tuesday from Michael Hubner at the executive committee meeting, one of the points that he made was he made a request to send comments. I asked him in terms of neighborhood centers, send comments, specific comments, ideally, in terms of where you may like to see, where you believe an additional neighborhood center should be. They have 9 they're going to be studying. But his request was if there are other locations, please send those specific locations as a comment. Additionally, if there is a belief that some of the neighborhood center boundaries should be adjusted, please also send those. And again, he asked for specifics as a comment as well. And I know that our approach, we have not got into the weeds of those sort of specific boundary adjustments for certain neighborhood centers in the past, but it was a direct ask by Michael Hubner. So I'm not necessarily looking for an answer right now, but just something for all of us to consider. And Vanessa, John, Olivia, maybe for you guys to think on and maybe be able to give us some guidance as to how we can respond to that sort of request for specifics, but understanding just that we're a body of, we're a large body and it's difficult to get to that level of detail. So how we might best respond to that comment as we pull our considerations together. And I say that in light, I have about 20 specific boundary adjustment comments that I'll just be sending on my own.
Perfect.
But yeah.
Only 20.
Thanks. That's, well, it's a start.
yeah, right. Okay. All right. Let's see. So let's get on to our next agenda item. Today we have Jonathan Lewis to provide an overview of the Seattle Transportation Plan Performance Report. Thank you and welcome to the Seattle Planning Commission. We have, let's see, we have a little less than 35 minutes for this agenda item, 30 minutes. So if we can leave hopefully leave 15 at the end of the presentation for questions and comments and discussion. That would be appreciated. So, Jonathan, take it away.
Okay, and can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, super. I'm so sorry to be late. I hope John filled you in on what the trials and tribulations of the morning. May I share, can I hit the present in Teams button, John?
Yep.
Yes, please go ahead.
That will work. Okay, is that, let me know if that's showing up for everybody in the room and at home. All good?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
super.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much for having me. I'm Jonathan Lewis. I'm the Transportation Planning Manager at SDOT. And we're beginning work on the Seattle Transportation Plan Performance Report. So appreciate y'all having me to give you an overview of what's ahead. The performance report has 4 objectives right out of the top. Wanted to start here. Even before I tell you what it is. We are sharing out data and progress. So just want to be transparent about how things are going here at SDOT. From an accountability perspective, this is how we show or share the how we're doing, basically, you know, relative to where our investments are going and how we're making progress against our goals. We'll be tracking a lot of the data you'll be seeing per our race and social equity index. And so we're track our progress by our equity priority areas. And then from an excellence perspective, this is SDOT's internal goal. We also use this data to think about how we can do a better job and improve things internally or better invest the resources internally, staff and dollars. So for today, I'll be giving you an overview of the report and then talking about some of the next steps. With a little bit of background for those who weren't around in 23-24 to talk about the plan itself. So the Seattle Transportation Plan was adopted in April of 2024, met with the Seattle Planning Commission many times through direct meetings and what we called all boards and commissions meetings. We invited the modal boards, the Planning Commission, and the Transportation Equity Work Group to a handful of forums over that 2-year period. This is our comprehensive transportation plan. It's the second most important planning document to the department after the comprehensive plan. And of course, engage with you all and a lot of community input, as you saw there on that slide. This is SDOT's vision, values, and goals. This comes from the Seattle Transportation Plan. And the plan really worked hard to organize, we worked hard to organize the plan around these goals and this vision. And that was done through a series of key moves and implementation actions. So when you look at the plan's divided into 2 parts, in the part 1 document, you'll see kind of the structure, goal organized structure. The plan did 2 things. The first was figure out what our goals were. That's, you know, we embroidered on our goals a little bit, but then figured out really what do we need to be doing as a department to better execute and see progress. You know, some of these have lagged over the years. Some struggle from lack of funding. And so what can we do as a department, really thinking about these goals to put these forward and advance these things. The second thing we do is, y'all may recall, we had separate, what we called the modal master plans. These had separate networks. They were prepared at separate times. And we wanted to lay all of those on top of each other and think about some more technical exercise. Think about how all of those networks interacted, and did a lot of work to really do math in each of our streets to see if things would fit or not fit, and made adjustments to the networks. We also developed some policy to help guide how we prioritize things in the right of way. So that brings us to, the plan was adopted, as I mentioned, a couple of years ago. And when it was adopted, City Council asked us to do 2 ongoing bodies of work. The first, and y'all heard from Sarah Strand last year about the work plan, or what's now called the implementation implementation plan, which was rebranded the implementation outlook for the STP. That's required every, I think, 4 years. Every 2 years, we need to prepare a performance report, and that's the focus of today's conversation. So this has 3 components. The first is to report on the performance measures. These are in Appendix C in the STP. So if you Google Seattle Transportation Plan Appendix C, and I'll put some links, share some links out with John for you all to access. But it's super easy to find. It's a very small document. We went from like 200 performance measures down to, depending on how you count, around 20 core measures. And those are sliced and diced in different ways, and you'll see that in that appendix. Second piece is that we'll track those performance measures by our RSEI, the Race and Social Equity Index. I'm sure you're familiar with that through your work on the comp plan. And then the third thing is there's a separate appendix, Appendix A, where we identified 81 large capital projects, and council asked us to track the progress on those. So every 2 years, we'll put this report together, is in air quotes, because it will probably be a combination of a dashboard. This is a lot of data, a lot of ways to slice and dice it when you layer in the RSEI, and then some kind of some form of a report that's still to be determined. So in the Tier 1 measures, these are, I'm not sure if you've heard SDOT talk about, we have 3 tiers of performance measures. If you're around in 2024, I was sharing about the wedding cake. At the top tier are citywide measures. These are, there's kind of a spectrum of measures between outcomes, things out in the world that we hope will happen, and then outputs. Those are the kind of the widgets we deliver. These are try to be very solidly focused on outcomes. We don't have total control over these, but this is kind of the real point of what we're trying to do. So you can see there are Vision Zero goals related to eliminating deaths and serious injuries in the right-of-way. Our GHG goal to get to 0, a new vehicle mile travel reduction target. And then the rest, there are only 7. Our mode share of total people not driving. The share of households, this is kind of a meta measure that looks at can you walk or bike on a bikeway or a sidewalk, a real one, to a real frequent transit route. Share of income devoted to transportation, and then the state of our assets in terms of how the percent that are in good or fair condition. And that's it. So that's our 7 top line goals. You can see those, many of them are cross-cutting. Top tier performance measures, many are cross-cutting according to our goals. So then you get to Tier 2. Tier 2 are also in the Seattle Transportation Plan. I'll just give you a flavor of those. So here are some of the transit ones. So we break down that roll-up mode share of all not driving modes to just the transit-specific mode. We look at access to transit, and we take out the can you walk or bike there on a real sidewalk or bikeway, just are you close enough? We look at feeling safe at the bus stop in the daytime and in the nighttime. This is one of the most alarming measures in terms of it's been on a real downward trajectory lately. Reliability of our system, share of folks that are taking advantage of discounted Orca card programs, and then the quality of the streets that transit's running in. So those are our transit measures, and then just one more slide on our freight measures. Serious injuries and fatalities involving a truck, the reliability of the freight network. And then we have a goal around zero emission goods delivery. And then the maintenance of the freight network. So you can see how we've kind of, we have more control over these tier 2 measures. We've many times broken down a top tier measure, a tier 1 measure to be more specific to that mode that we're focused on here. There is a set of tier 3 measures that the department works with, but those are not part of the STP. Those are the real specific, how many ADA ramps, how many miles of this, or number of potholes, how long does it take us to fill a pothole after we get the request, things like that. So very much about the day-to-day operation of the department. Those are usually connected to a funding measure rather than a plan like this. And so will not be included, but are part of the levy monitoring that is ongoing and you may have heard about, and other revenue stream monitoring like the benefit district. Okay, just a couple more slides before we open this up. So that was part 1, the performance measures. Part 2 is the RSEI, and we'll be tracking most of the performance measures can be tracked by the RSEI. That allows us to track overall system and our progress in eliminating disparities and past inequities. And then the third part I mentioned was the amount of funding and progress that we're making on those 81 large capital projects. So just highlighting a few of the major corridors that have a pretty significant amount of funding in the recent transportation levy. Okay, so what to expect as the commission? So we'll be building on that implementation outlook. We don't really want to try to duplicate that. That's the document that's saying what we're going to do. Here, we're kind of more looking backward about what has happened and, obviously the data. We do have to submit this to council this year, and we are targeting the very end of the year. We were looking at trying to get it to council before budget season. We kind of ruled that out for a variety of reasons. Mostly that we're still figuring out what the report looks like. Continue engagement with you all, and hope you'll have me back again when we have the draft report, so we can look at the numbers and kind of talk about what we're seeing and get some input from you all on what that means for us externally and internally. And then we'll be working to identify opportunities to leverage the report and the dashboard again to improve our own operations as a department. Okay, so that's the end of the overview. And we can, obviously this is your meeting, we can talk about whatever you want, but a couple questions that I'm specifically interested in, if you want to touch on these, are what does accountability to the plan, the Seattle Transportation, look like to you all? And then any thoughts you have about how I can best follow up with you at our subsequent meeting and make that a meaningful opportunity to grapple with the data.
Okay. Thanks, Jonathan. Let's see if you have comments and questions. Let's get them into the chat. Deanna has comments.
Hi, Jonathan. Thank you so much. This is very exciting to see progress on, and I know how overwhelming having to summarize, this massive amount of information and trends in a digestible form. So really appreciate the effort you guys are taking to do this. I think just to answer your question, was the slide removed?
I
I
did
just
take
wanted
it
to look at
down.
it. Oh, if you
You
wouldn't mind
want me
just
to
putting
post
the
the questions in
question.
the chat? Sure.
Yeah, or on this, if you share your screen again, that would be helpful.
Okay.
So I think your first question was, what does accountability look like? Is that right?
Correct. Yeah,
And I think I'll just offer my perspective on the accountability piece. I think for as a commission, it's probably twofold, at least in my perspective. One is how the Seattle Transportation Plan is supporting our growth strategy, right? And so that means, are we prioritizing and making strides to move the needle and see these the changes in these indicators at the is it possible? I know it's a lot of work, maybe, but I think as a commission, sometimes we struggle with looking at, say, an urban center or at the different divisions of our growth strategy and trying to understand if that particular geography has made changes, right? Like is seeing changes in VNT mode shift, accessibility, reduction in KSIs, killed and severely injured, collisions. So I think that form of accountability as a commission would really help us just make sure that we're seeing either alignment or if some of these strategies will help, advance those goals at these kind of sub area or sub geography levels. But I would like other folks in the commission to weigh in on that. So that's one way, and as a commission, that might look like. And then in general, what I would offer right now is I think, kind of in the combination of the different reporting that you all are working on as the department, Sarah's like 3-year implementation plan that kind of looks more to the future. This one that kind of looks more backward. It would just be great to have some kind of like easy way to see, like, as you have, right, the baseline, from that period of the baseline to today, what has the progress been? But then do look at a trend. Is there a way to inform the trend that we know that we can't predict the future. We don't have a crystal ball. There's too many factors, right? The economy influences transportation and trips and how people travel, right? So strongly. And I feel like we don't have enough insight into either demographic or economic data to inform these trends. I would love to see something that gives us insight. They could be maybe an insight box or something like that, that is not like, oh, we're predicting the future, but it gives us some form of ability to understand where future trends are going. So kind of again, like how do we are able to anticipate, have a future ready focus on these trends to help us better, if we only look at how to modify our operational performance as a department, so to speak, without kind of but this is where we're seeing it's kind of headed, right? Like if you only do it backwards and not also trying to inform it a little bit with the future, I think there's some missed opportunity. So I'll stop there. I could talk about this the entire time, but we'll let my fellow commissioners chime in on answering these questions.
Yeah, and
thank you, Jonathan.
And we have three other commissioners here ready to ask questions too. Let's see, Jonathan, do you have any comments regarding Deanna's?
Well, I do, but maybe we can. It might take us down too deep a rabbit hole, so maybe we'll keep going, and then I'll see if we have time for me to follow up. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Okay.
But I definitely got the main point there. Thank you.
Okay, Andy.
Yeah, a question, and it may not be exactly where you want to go, but an equity question is, how do you deal with a complaint-driven system? People know how to use, find it, fix it, versus what, getting all the potholes filled everywhere versus those who know how to complain and get to it.
Yeah, I think a lot of what we are trying to do as a department, this isn't directly related to the performance measures that you see here, but it is definitely connected to those tier 3 measures and that I mentioned. And, we try to use a combination of data along with customer feedback to make those decisions, and we are working really hard to balance those two inputs in a global way. Yeah, but we do depend on the public to point things out. You know, if a broken sidewalk or a pothole is there, you know, sometimes you just don't know unless we hear about it. So, but we are working to balance it. That's a great question and a point.
Thank you.
I think the department's been working on that pivot for a long time now. Still more to do, I'm sure.
All right, thank you.
Michaela.
Thank you for your presentation, Jonathan. I sit in the data space in my day job with housing and also have the responsibility for doing reporting. So I totally understand why you're like, we don't know what a report's going to look like, but we're still have
right.
to about it. A couple of things. I think that don't make the report such a huge document that nobody ever opens it. If you're investing all of this time and energy, maybe create just like different digital online like snapshots. Maybe it's multiple different dashboards so that the general public can more easily engage with, access, and learn from the results. And it's not buried somewhere in like a council report or 200-page document. I think that will, that's one suggestion. And then one of the things I think this presents an opportunity to do is to be a key piece of informing where we go with the phase 2, 3, and 4 of this taller, denser, faster. The city's asking some questions about how we grow around our frequent transit lines, our BRT lines, and other transit infrastructure. And I think your performance metrics might be able to help inform that discussion in some really meaningful ways. For example, how, and anyway, so that might be an opportunity there for your year-end report to council to point towards some recommendations or some adjustments. I would, that could be maybe potentially addressed through the other body of work that they will also be grappling with at the same time. And maybe an opportunity there for council to sync up these two different planning processes going forward. Might not actually be possible, but anyway, I'm excited about it. Love this data-driven work that you're doing. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Michaela. And if you have what you think is a good example of a report, I would love for you to share it out with us. So you can do that through John, I'm sure, or this council staff, commission staff. Yeah, I'm not sure the report. We will be delivering this at the end of the year. So would the timing work to inform taller, denser, faster? But certainly I meet with Michael all the time, Michael Hubner. So, and I have given him many earfuls on the Nexus. So, but certainly as we're working through, I'll make a point of bringing forward that data to help inform that. I think that's a great point. And we'll see, maybe the timing will work out. I'll be in touch with Michael about that question. Thank you.
Great. Radhika.
Hi, Jonathan. Thanks
Hey.
for the report. It's really exciting to see SDOT focused on evaluation and accountability, which I'm a big fan of. I just had a question, perhaps I'm not understanding it right, but could we look at your tier 1 measures slide?
Yeah.
I was wanting to understand how VMT connects to mobility and economic vitality.
Oh, this is a real pop quiz, Radhika, because we did this crosstab 3 years ago. Let's think. VMT connected to mobility and well, certainly on the mobility side, you know, VMT being vehicle miles traveled by cars, right? There's a clear nexus there where if it's going down, it usually means we're doing a good job of creating great alternatives. So there's a clear mobility nexus there. And then what was the other one? Livability? Yeah, and with less
economic vitality, yeah.
Yeah, economic vitality, I'm not totally sure there'd be a strong nexus there. I mean, there are some cases to be made that more pedestrian-oriented business districts perform better. But so, you know, I think that data's there, but certainly on the mobility side of that goal, it's there.
Yeah.
And then was there another one you wanted to talk about?
Well, I was wondering if there is anything related to transit ridership and if maybe a better metric would be VMT plus transit ridership, so that we're capturing the
Yep.
shift to alternate
Yeah, and we do
transportation.
capture, that's a great point, and we capture transit ridership in this roll up on tier 1, which is walk, bike, transit, and then we break transit ridership down. We have separate modal goals in each of the tier 2. We have a goal for walking, a goal for biking, a goal for transit, and a goal for driving. So we're definitely tracking that. Yeah.
I was also curious about the balance between the 4 goals in the tier 1 slide. It looks like it's a little over-indexed. If we go on the previous slide, it feels like it's over-indexed on safety and livability. And I was curious if there was like an intentional way that was framed.
It wasn't intentional, but the cookie did crumble that way. And on the maintenance side, you can see VMT there because that's connected, but really it's in this one, it appears that maintenance really gets the short shrift, but it just doesn't, it's hard to directly connect the state of good repair to some of these higher order outcome-based measures.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I know you said it's an excerpt, so I'll take a look at the appendix, but it's really good to see the performance measures. And I know how hard it is to come up with the metrics to track really complex and intersecting work.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Thanks.
Were there any
questions?
No, actually, we have other people that are in the queue here. Dylan Stevenson.
Hi, hopefully you can hear me at the airport. I just really quickly just want to say thank you so much for the presentation. I really liked how there were data that concerned customer and community perceptions regarding the different routes and infrastructure. I would just like to encourage other modes of gathering that information and really centering community input as a metric for measurements of success. I think that Michaela's suggestion of using multiple dashboards or some kind of other passive interfaces would be really great. But I think that what you provided here was really interesting. I think it's really good work. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Dylan G.
So just a quick point, and I think that Deanna had brought this up as well, but just emphasizing my curiosity on kind of overlaying the kind of the performance and of the STP as it relates to the growth plan, the One Seattle plan, and I just think there's definitely a need to prioritize future transit planning based, not only of course on the race and social equity index, but also on supporting growth based off of the comprehensive plan update. The 30 new neighborhood centers, and particularly the growth corridors that are being added that are going to have a lot of competing interests between transit, freight, personal vehicles, but also non-motorized transit, and just how that plays out. So I know that might be a little bit beyond this, but it would be good to see as you're evaluating the performance, understanding of and incorporation with how it's supporting the growth from the One Seattle plan.
Yeah, thanks, Dylan. And I'd say the table in the comp plan EIS on passenger load factors is the thing I am most worried about in this world. So would very much love to talk more about that.
Yeah. Let's see. So we are at time. So Jonathan, thank you so much for coming in and previewing what's going to be in the report. I think we're going to be all of us data nerds are going to be really excited to dig into this. But But other than that, at this point, I'd like to adjourn our meeting. Thank you all for coming and have a great Thursday.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.